Hi everyone, so in this video I'll be showing query results for queries which I've done based on a database for children clinics in Trinidad and Tobago. The purpose of creating this database was so that information captured at any children clinic within Trinidad and Tobago could be stored in one centralized database. As a result, information based on patients can be accessed at any children clinic in Trinidad and Tobago once it is belonging to the Ministry of Health. With that being said, I will be showing the queries that I have done. I would discuss the purpose of each query and how each query works. Firstly, I am going to go on to my switchboard page, which will show all the different queries. Each button will show data result based on queries which I have done. Question 1. This query will show the nurses' names that give vaccines, and you can see it here. It will show the date the vaccines were given. It will show the expiration dates of the vaccines, and it will be ordered by the expiration date itself. The purpose of creating this query was to display the data to authorities to ensure that the vaccines given by the nurses were not expired on a date of vaccination. If so, the authorities would be able to locate the nurses using their IDs and their names, which you would see under nurses info. In order to do this query, I used inner joins and order by. The main table used was a vaccination table. For this query, I inner joined vaccine on the vaccination table as well as nurse on the vaccination table. I ordered the information by the expiration date of vaccines. Here you will see a combination of the nurse's ID and their name, which I have pulled from the nurse's table and combined into under one column called nurse's info. Here you would see the vaccine names that was given by each nurse. This is all the vaccination dates that the vaccine was given and the expiration dates. Here I would show you the snippet of the code, as you can see here, together with the information after running it on SQL command. On to question 2. Question 2 is about retrieving the name of the patients and the name of the illness that each patient had together with their appointment and the contact number. Ordering to get this query done, inner joins was done as well as order by. Here, the main table used was progress sheet. Since all information about diagnosis would be stored on the progress sheet itself. So, I inner joined the patient on the progress sheet in order to get the first name and the surname of each patient. Inner join diagnosis on the progress sheet in order to get the name of the illness. I did an inner join of the appointment on the progress sheet in order to get the appointment date of each patient. Inner join the patient contact on the progress sheet in order to get the contact of each patient. The purpose of having this query was to retrieve the patients that was critical and the appointment dates that they were given in order to reschedule each patient to an earlier date. The contact was necessary so that the clerks can call patients and inform them of their rescheduled date. Here I would show you the code that I have used to get this data. So you would see that I use the inner join. The inner joins here, the patient, diagnosis, appointment, patient contact, all inner join on the progress sheet, ordered by the diagnosis status. Here you would see the order by being done, where you'd show all the critical patients and the non-critical at the bottom. Question 3. retrieved the patients that was examined by registered nurses. The purpose of retrieving this data was for the purpose of allocating bonus wages to the registered nurses who examined patients. This is because the examination of patients is not a core duty of the registered nurse. Once the relevant IDs is given, the nurses will be located. In order for this information to be displayed, a subquery was done. You would see this query captured the patients that the nurses examined for proof and the registered nurses that examine each one of the patients. Here I would show the code that has been used. In addition to this subquery, I use a partial matching to ensure that I got all the nurses that are registered nurses. Registered nurses being a type of nurse that works at clinics. Each nurse registered nurse ID ended in RN. As a result, I used partial matching within a subquery in order to access or display this data. Question 4. Display the first name and the surname, contact and ID of all nurses who are head nurses in the notes. Display the clinic ID, the note clinic's ID end in N. Just keep in mind. Declaring this information is necessary since a registered nurse can be the head nurse of a clinic. The present head nurse in the North District needed to be replaced since they have been active for a very long time. In order to allocate other head nurses to each clinic, a list of the registered nurses for the district is needed to be captured. In order for this information to be captured, an inner join was done on the head nurse table. So I used nurse inner join on head nurse table. I also used partial matching in order to capture this information. In this table, you would see the nurse's ID will show up, the first name, the surname, the clinic ID, and the contact of the nurse as requested. You would see all clinic IDs based on their district will end in the relevant letter. Example, clinics in the north, as stated, their IDs end in N. As a result, partial matching was done to capture this ID. Here I will show you how the code was done and how the information was captured. A select was done to show the ID of the nurse, the first name of the nurse, the surname, the clinic ID that the nurse is allocated to, and the nurse's contact. An inner join with the nurse on the head nurse was done in order to capture the nurse's ID, who is a head nurse. Partial matching was done in order to capture the clinic ID, which end in N, seeing that all clinics based on their district end in the relevant letters. Example, clinics that are in the north end with N, clinics that are in the south end with S. So partial matching was ideal in order to capture this particular ID. Question 5. Display the name of the illnesses that has been diagnosed the most and the least. The purpose of retrieving this information, since doctors needed to know the illnesses that was most common so that they can ensure that they are properly equipped to treat each patient, also so that they can inform the public about the particular illness. In order to capture this information, an aggregate function was used. An aggregate to find the max illness and the min illness, meaning the maximum, the illness that was seen the most, and the illness that has been seen the least from the diagnosis table. As you can see here, the illness diagnosed the most was yellow fever, and the illness diagnosed the least was chickenpox. Question 6. For each clinic that has more than 3 registered patients, display the name, the district, as well as the total amount of registered patients for that specific clinic. The purpose of retrieving this data is to determine the clinics with a large amount of patients in order to know which clinics require the most amount of supplies. Clinics that has more than 3 registered patients will require more supplies as compared to a clinic with less than 3 registered patients. As you can see here, you would see the clinic ID in order to know exactly which ID consists of these patients, the name of each clinic, the district, and the amount of patients. As you can see here, in order to capture this data, I selected the clinic's ID, the name, and the district, and I counted the patient ID. I used the clinic table and I joined registration. I used the clinic ID, I grouped the clinic ID, name, and district, and I count the patient IDs in registration to ensure that it was more than or equal to 3 in order to capture this amount here, or the count of the patients in each one of these clinics. Question 7. Retrieve the name of the patient and their guardian name and their email who registered with the clinic in the Central District. The purpose of retrieving this data was necessary since the clerks needed to contact each patient's guardian via email to inform them that all clinics in the Central District would be closed between the 20th of October 2007 and the 26th of October 2007 due to massive floodings. Here you would see the data captured was the patient's full name together with their guardian's info. Guardian's info meaning the guardian's first name and the guardian's email address in order to contact the guardian of each patient. A subquery as a relation was used in order to capture this information. Here you would see that I joined the F name, meaning the first name, and the S name, meaning the surname of the patient in order to get the patient's full name under one column. I joined the guardian's or the mother's name together with the guardian's or mother's email in order to get the guardian information under one column. I used the patient's table to gather this information. I did a subquery with patients in registration, and then I did registration in clinic. I gathered the patients that were registered where the clinic ID in clinic were central. I also used partial matching here in order to gather all the patients that were part of the central environment. As a result, I was able to access the patient's full name here, and I was able to get the guardian's information of all the patients within Central using a subquery as a relation and partial matching. Question 8. Display the names of all the clinics in the same district and order them by district. This information is gathered in order to take note of all the clinics in the same district, so when supply deliveries are being done, it can be done in the same day based on their district. In order to capture this information, a self-join was used. Here you would see the query or the SQL which I've used in order to get this data. I did a self-join with the clinic table and I ordered it according to districts in the first clinic table in order to capture this information. What the self-join is to join a table together with itself, together with every other row of the table. Question 9 was based on a view. A view to display the patient's appointments and group them according to their appointment dates. The view should entail the patient's ID, as you can see here, their first name and the surname as full name, their contact information, and their appointment dates. The purpose of this view is to easily view all appointments that was given out to each patient recently in a summarized manner in the event that appointments need to be rescheduled. In order to reschedule an appointment, the clerks need to contact the guardian of the patient in order to reschedule the appointment. As a result, capturing the guardian's information wasn't necessary. This is how the view was created. The purpose of a view is to gather information from various different tables into one table to make data more summarized. As a result, I have used the patient table, the appointment table, and the patient's contact table in order to get information. In order to get a table called patient's appointment. I captured the patient's ID, their first name, their surname as the patient's full name, the mother or guardian's name, and the mother or guardian's email as the guardian information. I captured the appointment date as well as the patient's contact. Here I stated once the patient's ID in the patient's table is equal to the patient ID in the appointment table, and the patient's ID in the patient's table is equal to the patient's ID in the patient's contact table, and order it by appointment date in descending order. As you can see here, the view was successfully created. Here you can see if I select all from the patient's appointment table, you would see all the information showing up from the table or the view created. You can see the patient's ID, the patient's full name, the guardian's information, appointment date, and their contact. Question: display all the patient's guardian information who were given appointments for the 18th of October 2007 in a summarized manner in order to quickly access the contacts of each patient in order to call the patient's guardian and reschedule their appointments. The purpose of this view was to display the appointments on October the 18th, 2007, since there was an holiday on this day. Appointments were needed to reschedule since initially the holiday was supposed to be on the 19th of October 2017 and appointments were booked on the 18th instead of the 19th. However, the holiday was granted on the 18th. So in order to capture this information in a summarized manner, I captured the guardian's name and their email address as well as the contact. Here you would see the appointment date, which was the 18th October 2007. This is how it was done. I used the new view, which we just created, the patient's appointments, and I captured the guardian's information, the appointment date, and the contact of the patients, with their date being the 10th appointment, the view which was created, and I captured the guardian's information and the appointment date as well as the contact from this new table that was created. I used partial matching to match the accurate date, which was the 18th of the 10th month 2017. As you can see here, the appointment date showed up together with all the information, the guardian's name, their email, and the contact. A trigger was done in order to enforce that a clinic can only have 2 doctors. Enforcing this trigger is necessary since they need to ensure that each clinic only has 2 doctors assigned, since each clinic can only facilitate 2 doctors. So this trigger was created. As you can see, it was successfully created. I did the max doctors here. I used max doctors and I count the amount of doctors assigned to a clinic. I count to ensure that it was equal to 2, less than or equal to 2. I raised an error here that the doctor cannot be assigned to a clinic if there was more than 2 doctors. Else, if there's less than 2 doctors, a doctor could successfully be assigned to a clinic. Now I'm going to show where I can test the trigger to ensure that it was working. So I did a normal insert statement. I run that and you would see an error showing up here, letting you know that there was an error during the execution of the trigger, and then you can see another error here that was done in the trigger, that the doctor cannot be assigned to a clinic because this particular clinic that I'm trying to assign the doctor to already has 2 doctors. Another trigger was done to ensure that one patient is only allocated to 1 progress sheet. So one patient cannot have more than 1 progress sheet. So again, I did a max on the progress sheets. I count the ID allocated to the progress sheets to ensure that it was less than or equal to 1. And if the patient already has a progress sheet, you would see that the progress sheet cannot be added for this patient because there's a progress sheet that exists. However, if a patient doesn't have a progress sheet, you will see the progress sheet successfully added. Triggers. The purpose of a trigger is to set a constraint in order for an action not to be carried out. So here I'm going to do a normal insert statement to add a progress sheet for a particular patient who already has a progress sheet. When you execute it, you will see your error showing up saying progress sheet cannot be added for this patient, progress sheet exists. However, if this patient did not have a progress sheet, it would have went through. So that's it for the queries, triggers, and the views that I did based on this database for the Children Clinics of Trinidad and Tobago. I hope this video was informative.